The first time the shadows stand to attention on the parade ground, half the men are too tired to notice. We stand in 2 ranks in the square of the old fort, rifles at the slope, sweat drying in white lines on our sleeves. The sun is going down behind the broken western wall, a flat red coin pressed against dust and stone. The fort squats in the middle of nothing, a rectangle of pitted concrete and old Italian brick on a rocky rise overlooking the desert. Heat lifts off the stones in thin, wobbling bands. Company, Ottenshawn boots, stamp. Leather creaks, webbing shifts. You hear the clink of bayonets on scabbards, the dry cough of someone with sand in his lungs. You fix on the flagpole in front of the blockhouse, a bare metal pipe with no flag on it. The Union Jack rotted away 2 weeks ago. No one has bothered to replace it. Out beyond the low wall, the desert goes on forever, all rock and sand and dry wadis, stretching toward the Libyan interior. Roll call. Lieutenant Harper's voice cracks a little on the last word. Young voice. Too clean for this place. He's standing on the low step outside the blockhouse door, cap pushed back, clipboard under one arm, the other hand shading his eyes. Sergeant McAllister stomps past the front of the platoon, boots thudding on concrete. On your toes, lads. We might be in the arse end of nowhere, but the book still applies. He gives you a look as he passes. Quick, sharp, blue eyes under sandy brows. You straighten a little. The webbing bites into your shoulders. Sand crunches inside your boots, never all the way shaken out. Baker section, Harper calls. Private Ames. Here, sir. Private Collins. Here. Name. Here. Name. Here. A rhythm as steady as the tick of the old clock in the mess. Men answering like they've done it 100 times. Then you notice it. The light is wrong. The sun is low enough that your shadow stretches all the way across the parade ground, long and thin. You should have 1 shadow. Each man should have 1. You have 2. 1 darker shape lies where it should, long and sharp on the cracked concrete. The second stands a little offset, half a boot length to the right, as if it isn't quite sure where its owner is supposed to be. You blink. Sweat runs into your eyes. You shift your weight. The first shadow follows. The second stays where it is, feet planted, shoulders squared, head at a slightly different angle from yours. Corporal Hales, you drag your eyes away from the ground. Here, sir. Your mouth is dry. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. Private Singh. Here, Sahib. Singh's voice has a little laugh in it, as if the whole thing is a ridiculous formality. He shifts his rifle against his shoulder. His shadow on the ground is perfect. 1 line, 1 shape. You look back down at your own. 2 silhouettes at attention. 1 correct, 1 wrong. The wrong one lifts a hand to salute. No one around you moves. You don't breathe for a whole second. The shape's arm rises in 1 clean, disciplined motion, hand to shadow brow. The other shadow, the one that actually matches your body, does nothing. Your own arm is glued to your side. You don't move. Private Yates. Here. Harper reads on. Boots creak. A fly buzzes in your ear and is batted away. Somewhere inside the fort, a generator coughs and dies, then stutters back to life. You force your eyes up, stare straight ahead, and don't look at the ground again until dismiss. By then, the sun is gone, and the shadows are part of the concrete. They tell you later that you must have been seeing double. Heat, strain, bad rations, that the desert plays tricks on your eyes. You don't argue. You don't say that what you saw didn't wobble or shimmer like a mirage. It was black and solid as ink poured over stone. That night, after stand 2, you hear the Bedouin talk about the fort again. They call it Qasr al-Arwah, the fort of spirits. You lie awake on your cot, listening to the wind. The fort used to be Italian. Concrete and plastered painted a dirty cream, built on top of a much older ruin. At least, that's what Mustafa says, the old Sanusi trader who brings goats and water barrels once a week. Before that, he says, there was another fort on the same rock, from the days when the Turks had men out here in red fezzes and frayed boots. Before them, some other men, forgotten, stone blocks even older, half buried now. A place that never quite manages to be empty. Your bit of the desert war is a square of stone on a lonely rise between Hafaya Pass and the interior. A rear area strongpoint, they call it in the briefing. A forward defended locality. A place for the 2nd Battalion, King's Own Royal Regiment, to lodge itself like a splinter from the big British hand reaching west. You arrived 2 weeks ago in a rattling column of lorries, following tank tracks and dust. The fort rose out of the horizon like a child's wooden block toy, simple and wrong against the endless curve of sand and scrub. Outer wall, inner square, 2 low watchtowers at opposite corners, and a single gate big enough to drive a truck through. An Italian sign on the side, words half shot away, still visible in flaking black paint. Fortino 24. Inside, everything smelled of old oil, sweat, and lime wash. Rusted Italian helmets lay in corners. Empty shell cases were piled neatly by one wall, left as if someone had meant to come back. Sand had blown in over everything. Men's boots and wheels had made new layers, tracks over tracks. Your boots made their own. You got your section assigned, bunks sorted, duties posted on a board that still had Italian writing under the crude English chalk. Guard roster, kitchen duty, motor pool detail, radio watch, endless lists in Harper's careful, tight handwriting. 3 names you learn fast. Sergeant McAllister Mac. Wide shoulders, arms like knotted rope, a voice like gravel in a tin. He has a habit of knocking his pipe against the nearest bit of concrete when he's thinking, even when the pipe is empty. Married. 1 kid. A photo folded so many times the creases look like battle damage. Private Gurmit Singh, from the attached Indian Supply Company. Dark turban, light grin, always humming snatches of Punjabi songs that no one understands but everyone ends up whistling. Keeps a little brass kara on his wrist, shiny and clean even when the rest of him is caked in dust. Private Eddie Yates. Thin, pale lad from Manchester with ears that stick out just enough that everyone comments on them once and then never again. He's always chewing something gum when he has it. A bit of scrap wood when he doesn't. Talks about an older brother in the Navy, as if the man were some sort of half-mythical hero. Your Corporal Thomas Hales. Signals and rifles. You make sure the sets work, the wires are run, and the men don't shoot the aerial by accident when they get jumpy. You're 23, and your skin feels older than the fort walls. The first time you hear the legend is in the motor pool yard, late afternoon, the day before the shadow salutes. The sun is a hammer. You and Singh are under the bonnet of a Bedford, sleeves rolled up, hands black with oil. Mac watches from the shade, pipe in mouth, pretending to supervise, and really just killing time. A fly crawls over the back of your neck. You shrugged it off. Mustafa stands in the gate, robes flapping in the hot wind, bare feet white with dust. His goats tug at sparse tufts of scrub outside, bells clinking softly. He has brought dates this time. The cook haggles with him, voices low, hands moving. Words trading back and forth in Arabic and broken Italian, and even more broken English. You hear numbers, the names of Allah, all spun into the barter like an extra set of beads on a thread. Mustafa watches the men in the yard. He watches the parade ground, where the paint outline of an old Italian parade square still faintly marks the concrete. He mutters something, clicks his tongue against his teeth. Max sees you looking. Go on then, ask him, he says. You wipe your hands on a rag and walk over. Mustafa's eyes are almost lost in the wrinkles of his wind-burned face, but they are sharp and clear. He gives you a gap-toothed smile. Tell him we're not paying 3 tins of bully for that. The cook grumbles. What do you call this place? You ask Mustafa instead. Not the Italian name? The Arab one. He squints past you at the walls. Qasr al-Arwah. What's that mean? He taps his own shadow on the ground with his staff. Fort of spirits. Fort of shadows. The cook snorts. Everything is haunted to these lads. A well, a rock, a bit of goat shit. Don't start. You ignore him. Why? You ask. Why shadows? Mustafa's face goes serious. The goats move, bells chiming softly. The flies sound louder. Men stand here, he says slowly, as if feeling each English word before he lets it go. Long time, before Italiana, before Turk, soldiers. He lifts his chin at the walls. Always soldiers. They stand, they call the names. He slaps his hand against his chest, as if obeying an invisible sergeant. They answer. Some live, some die. Names stay. He points at the concrete square, the faint lines where some Italian engineer once marked out perfect ranks. Son, go down, he says. You do not call the names when sun go down. The ones who die answer still. You make them come. They do not like to be called back. Singh leans around the truck bonnet, grin wide. Tell him we call names all the time and no ghosts yet. Mustafa looks at him. You call in dark, he asks. Singh shrugs. We call when we are told. Mustafa shakes his head slowly. Do not call in dark, he repeats. Shadows will line. If you count too many, you shoot at wrong men. If you count too few, the missing ones come to take you. The cook laughs, takes the tins from the crate, and presses them into Mustafa's hands. Go on, old man. Take your bully and your stories. Mustafa takes the tins. He does not laugh. As he steps backward through the gate, he lifts his staff once, points at the flagpole, then taps his own bare feet. Fort remembers, he says. Once you stand here, you never leave. That night, orders come down for a formal roll call at sunset. Harper got a sharp note from Battalion. You hear Mac mutter later. Some colonel wants to see neat, precise returns from each company. Someone is getting shouted at about discipline somewhere up the line, so you all get to stand and sweat in the parade ground while the sun dies. You remember Mustafa's words as you form up. You remember them when you see the extra shadow raise its hand. You say nothing. After dismiss, you head for the radio room to catch the evening schedule. The fort shifts around you, all stone and darkening hallways, shadows creeping into corners. Men move through the gloom with mugs and mess tins and rifles slung over shoulders. Laughter echoes up a stairwell and evaporates. In the little radio room, a bare bulb hums over the set. The operator before you, a quiet lad named Fletch, scribbles something in the log and nods as you come in. Anything? You ask. Rommel's still out there, he says. Our lots say he's further west. The Germans say they're everywhere. Static crackles in the headphones. An English voice breaks through, clipped and dry, giving bearings and call signs. Then, an Italian voice, urgent, almost panicked, bleeds in over the top. Something about fuel and water and a broken-down convoy. You sit, take the headphones, and settle into the ritual of listening and writing. Behind you, the fort breathes. The second time the shadows line up, it's worse. 2 nights later, you're on second watch at the gate with Yates. Midnight, the desert is a black sea around the fort. Waves of sand frozen mid-crest. The sky is clear. The stars feel close enough to pick. Wind rubs against the walls like a cat's flank. Yates leans on the parapet, rifle slung, trying to smoke a cigarette down to the filter. He shields the ember with his hand, the glow like a tiny red eye behind his fingers. Do you ever think about just walking? He asks. Just that way? He nods toward the dark. To where? You say. He shrugs. Anywhere that's not this bloody brick box. He takes a drag, coughs. He always coughs on the second drag. You've come to expect it. You check your watch. 12:30. The metal is cool against your wrist for once. From the parade ground behind you, you hear boots. Not one pair, several. The steady, measured cadence of marching feet on concrete. No voices, no clink of webbing. Just the sound of soles hitting stone, in rhythm. Yates hears it too. His face goes still. The cigarette hangs forgotten at the corner of his mouth, the ember flaring. Who's that? He whispers. There's no scheduled movement. No patrol going out. No platoon drill at midnight. The inner gate is closed. You would have heard it open. You step back from the parapet and lean to look through the firing slit toward the parade ground. From here you can see only a slice of the square, half cut off by the angle of the wall. In that slice, under the hard white moonlight, you see shadows. Black shapes, as neat as any drill manual, lined up in 2 ranks. Only shadows, no bodies, no helmets, no rifles. Just flat darkness on pale concrete, all at attention. They don't move. They don't waver. The wind blows across the square, and they don't flicker. You count without meaning to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The numbers don't match the men you know are sleeping inside. Yates swallows. You can hear the spit in his throat. Maybe it's clouds, he says weakly. Moons. Clouds. There are no clouds. The stars are knives in a black sheet. Stay here, you say. You push the gap door open and step into the courtyard, rifle in your hands. Your boots crunch on sand. The wind tastes of stale cordite and dust and something else, like old smoke. The shadows stay where they are. When you reach the edge of the parade ground, your own shadow joins them, thin and stretched. For a heartbeat, it tries to slide into one of the empty spaces, like a magnet seeking a slot. It doesn't fit. It jerks back to cling to your feet. You stop. Every part of you wants to turn around and walk back to the gate. Instead, you take one more step forward. The shadows are a full platoon's worth. You can see the gaps where files would be. 2 ranks. The front rank's shoulders are lower, the back rank a little taller. One shape at the front, offset, where a sergeant would stand. There is no one on the ground casting them. You hear breath behind you. Yates has followed, cigarette gone, fingers clenched on his rifle. Tom, he says. Let's go. One of the shadows in the second rank turns its head. The movement is slow, almost lazy. A black oval on black shoulders, swiveling a fraction until it faces you. No face, no features. Just a blank curve of night on concrete. There's a sound then, very soft, like paper being torn in another room. Your teeth ache. The hair on your arms lifts. The shadow takes one step forward. The others stay where they are. Your feet don't work. Your arms do. You bring the rifle up. The barrel wobbles. The shadow stops. Its head tilts, as if regarding the muzzle. Drop, or I fire, you whisper. It doesn't understand English. You think crazily. Shadows don't speak. The shadow at the front, the one where a non-com should be, lifts its hand in a sharp, clean salute. The sound comes again, closer now, a dry rip in the air. Your eyes water. Tom, Yates' voice is tight. Tom, for the love of the fort's clacks and screams. It's a horrible, mechanical wail, Italian and ancient, but it does its job. It tears the night apart. Men shout inside the barracks. Boots hit floors. Someone knocks over a metal mug. The generator coughs and surges. You flinch, finger tightening on the trigger. The shadows vanish. Not like smoke. Not like something running. 1 second they are there, black and solid. The next, the parade ground is empty under the moon. Just the rough texture of concrete and one thin shadow at your feet. Harper's voice yells from the inner doorway. Gate sentries, report. What's out there? You and Yates look at each other. Nothing, sir, you shout back, because the alternative is madness. Then why the hell's the alarm going? Mac barks, barging past Harper, shirt open, braces hanging. He slaps the klaxon control with his palm. The wail dies with a choked sob, leaving your ears ringing. You all look at the panel. The switch is still set to OF. Mac's pipe hangs forgotten from his lip. Who flipped it? He demands. No one answers. The next day, Harper orders a full parade again, in daylight, just to show that everything is normal. Sing jokes about ghosts wanting to join up. Yates doesn't laugh. You keep catching him looking at the parade ground when he thinks no one sees. Rumors spread the way they always do. Someone heard footsteps in the corridor at 2 in the morning when everyone was accounted for. Someone else saw a man in Italian webbing standing on the wall, then turning a corner and disappearing. Someone swears blind that the old Italian sign on the outside of the fort reads differently at night, letters shifting around like a crossword. No one mentions the shadows out loud. That afternoon, Mustafa doesn't come. He is due. Water barrels are low. The goat's bells should have been clinking outside the gate long before noon. Acacia smoke from his little fire should be hanging in the air. The desert beyond the wall is empty. Probably sandstorm somewhere further down, the cook says. He'll be along. By dusk, the horizon is clear in every direction. No dust cloud, no tiny human figure, no goats. You stand another roll call. The sun makes you into thin men stretching toward the inner wall. You keep your eyes on Harper's face, on the clipboard, anywhere but on the ground. Corporal Hales here, sir. If there are extra shadows behind you, you don't look. You can feel something at your back, though, like a row of breaths. Later, in the mess, Mac tells a story about a French Foreign Legion fort he heard about from an old soldier in a pub in Alexandria. How they used to count the shadows instead of the men when the sun was low, because the shadows were more honest. How, one evening there were more shadows than men, and someone made a joke about stragglers finding their way in. Half the garrison was dead by dawn. Singh taps his spoon on the table in time with the story. Yates stares into his tea. That's rubbish, Eddie mutters. Stories to scare recruits. Reckon so, Max says. He doesn't sound like he entirely reckons so. That night the desert changes. It starts with a rumble you think is the generator misfiring. Then the cups on the mess table rattle. Sand trickles from a hairline crack in the ceiling. The radio aerial hums. You go outside with everyone else. On the horizon, to the west, a line of light flickers. Orange, white, orange again. The sound reaches you a second later. A distant, heavy thumping. Artillery, far off, but not far enough. Men stand on the wall, silhouettes against the stars, helmets, dark lumps. Some lean on the parapet. Some just stand with hands on the concrete, as if bracing themselves. Harper appears with a map, paper fluttering in the wind. Rommel's pushing again, he says to Mac, voice low. Reports of movement near the frontier. Battalion says we're to be ready. We're a hinge on the line, or some such nonsense. Means we'll get forgotten, Mac grunts. As usual, you watch the flashes. You think of all the men under them, scattered along roads and ridges and dried out wadis, moving or dying or both. Somewhere, someone else is listening to a different set of orders, being told that your little fort is nothing but a notation on a map. When you go back inside, you feel eyes on your back. You turn once, halfway across the parade ground. The shadows of the men on the wall lie long and dark across the stone. For a heartbeat, you see other shadows standing between them, filling the gaps, all facing in, toward the square. A gust of wind lifts dust into your eyes. When you blink it away, the gaps are just gaps again. 2 days later, the first shell hits the fort. It comes in mid-morning, when the light is clear and cruel, and the men are scattered across small tasks. You are in the radio room, arguing with a crackling line from Battalion about fuel allocations. The voice on the other end sounds as bored as you feel. The world punches you in the chest. The sound is bigger than anything, bigger than the generator, bigger than the trucks. The floor leaps. The walls bow inward and rebound. Dust explodes from the ceiling in brown clouds. You hit the floor without meaning to, ears full of white noise. Someone screams, not from pain, from surprise, that cut-short animal yelp when the universe rearranges itself. You push yourself up. The radio set lies on its side. The table has shifted 3 inches. The mug by your elbow is on the floor, tea spreading in a pattern that is wrong, as if the liquid is avoiding certain cracks. Report. Harper's voice barks down the corridor, a little too high. Hit on the outer wall. Someone shouts. Near the western tower. Men run, boots, hammer. You grab your rifle and follow. In the western corridor, the air is full of dust so thick you can taste it. Grit crunches in your teeth. Someone's coughing hard enough to retch. You feel your way along the wall until your hand comes away sandy and wet. At the breach, daylight pours in a harsh, slanting wedge. The shell has smashed a section of wall the size of a Bedford truck, turning concrete into jagged teeth. Beyond the gap, the desert looks almost calm. Smoke curls lazily from impact marks in the sand. Sergeant McAllister stands at the edge, shouting down to men below. A squad is already dragging sandbags, building an improvised barricade where the wall used to be. You climb up beside him. His face is gray under the dust, eyes bright. A trickle of blood runs from his left ear. "They're ranging us," he says. "Germans or Italians, who knows? Mortar or field gun. Either way, they've remembered we exist." As if to prove him right, a second shell lands further out, kicking up a fountain of sand. The fort trembles. The barrage goes on for an hour. Not continuous, measured, probing shots. A hit near the gate. Another on the outer corner of the motor pool. One shrapnel burst in the parade ground itself, carving a bright new crater in the old Italian lines. Between impacts, you hear something else. Footsteps, not the frantic, scattered running of men carrying ammunition or dragging wounded. Measured, rhythmic, that same roll call cadence. Inside the barracks, through the walls, above your head. You catch Singh's eye once as you both press against a stairwell, waiting for the next shell. His pupils are huge on either side of the bridge of his nose. He hears it too. After it stops, the fort feels smaller. The damage tally is miraculously low. One man dead. Kershaw, a quiet northerner, crushed by falling masonry when part of the motor pool roof gave way. Two others wounded, bandaged in the little aid post in what used to be an Italian infirmary. The physical harm seems almost insulting compared to the noise. In the late afternoon, they bury Kershaw just outside the eastern wall, where the sand is softer. The Padre is 3 days' drive away with the rest of the brigade. So Harper reads a few lines from a damp, dog-eared Bible, while the men stand in a ragged semicircle. The wind blows dust into the open grave. It sticks to the sweat on your face. Kershaw's helmet sits on the end of a rifle, at the head of the plot, webbing straps flapping. Someone has placed his mug on the sand at the foot, enamel chipped. As the last handful of sand patters onto the tarp-wrapped shape, you feel something shift behind you, a line of pressure, like a new row of men standing to attention. You don't turn around. You don't need to. That night, the roll call is compulsory. It comes down from Battalion, couched in bland phrases. Ensure full accountability of men after recent enemy action. Reassert routine and discipline. "That's you told," Mac mutters. Ghosts or no ghosts. You form up on the parade ground at last light. The horizon is a band of bruised purple. The first stars are faint pinpricks. The crater from that day's shrapnel hit gapes near the middle of the square like an open mouth. Company Odenschen, the fort seems to hold its breath. Harper's voice wavers only slightly as he starts calling names. The first few are routine. Men answer. Boots stand in line. The smell of sweat and cordite and concrete in cooling air wraps around you. Then he calls a name that shouldn't be there. Private Kershaw. The word hangs. Every head in the rank twitches, just enough to see who will answer, who will make the joke, who will react. No one speaks. From behind you, from the third file where no one is standing, you hear a voice. "Here, sir." It's Kershaw's voice, soft, a little hoarse, exactly as it sounded 3 nights ago when he'd asked in the mess if anyone had seen his mug. Harper's clipboard dips, his knuckles whiten. Yates stiffens beside you so hard you worry something will snap. You don't look back. You don't look down. You know that if you look down, you will see the shadows. Harper clears his throat. Private Kershaw is struck off strength, he says hoarsely. Error. His eyes flick toward the shadow at his feet, but his face doesn't follow. You feel a movement in the air, like a breath leaving something. Private Yates. Here, sir. Yates' voice is strangled. The roll goes on. Twice more. Harper calls the name of a man who shouldn't be called. Once it's a man transferred to another company. Once it's a name you don't recognize at all. Each time, there is a faint answer from somewhere in the ranks that don't exist. The last name is yours. Corporal Hales. The breath at your neck is cold. Here, sir, you say. Your own voice sounds wrong in your ears, higher than you expect. Dismiss comes like a word in a foreign language. Men break ranks, moving faster than discipline allows. There's a tightness to the movement, a sense that everyone wants to be off the concrete, away from the lines. That night, you can't sleep. You leave the dim mutter of the barracks and go up onto the roof of the blockhouse. The stars are bright. The fort below you is a pale shape on darker sand. Somewhere in the motor pool, a spanner clinks where someone's left it. From the aid post, a wounded man groans in his sleep. On the parade ground, there is nothing. No shadows, no shapes. Just a square of concrete with a new crater, ringed by the faint paint of an old empire and walked by the boots of a new one. You sit with your back against the lip of the roof, knees drawn up, rifle across your lap. You think of Mustafa, of his goats, of his talk of names and shadows. You think of the old stories your grandfather told about crossroads and churchyards, and why you don't whistle past cemeteries. At some point, you drift. You wake with your cheek pressed to your sleeve, mouth dry and gritty. The stars have shifted. The air is colder. Down below, someone is calling a roll, a voice, precise and clipped, speaking Italian. Names you don't understand. A crisp C, Signore, after each one. You crawl to the edge and look down. The parade ground is full, not bodies, not flesh, shadows, rank upon rank of them, filling the square shoulder to shoulder. Short, tall, officers at the front, non-coms along the side. One shaped by the flagpole where a colonel might stand. The voice calls a name. A shadow lifts its hand in salute, then drops it, going back to rigid attention. The crater in the middle of the square is a blacker hole within blackness, as if nothing casts a shadow there at all. You press your forehead to the concrete lip until the roughness bites into your skin. The voice goes on. The shadow ranks never thin. When the dawn gun sounds from a distant battery on the line, the shadows in the square evaporate like breath on a mirror. The fort gets busier. The shelling the other day was a taste. Bigger things are moving along the coast. There are days of frantic activity, then sudden waiting that feels worse. Messages come and go. Trucks arrive and leave. One morning, a squadron of hurricanes buzzes low overhead, their engines a deep, reassuring snarl. That night, heavy engines rumble out in the dark beyond the fort where the main road runs, columns inching through the night. Your job doubles. More signals to handle, more batteries and brigades relaying their fears through your headset. You hear the strain in men's voices even when their words are clipped and correct. Inside the fort, the legend digs in. Someone scrawls Qasr, al-ghosts on a whitewashed wall. Someone else scribbles X over it and writes no names after dark. Men start skipping the last few letters when they sign the duty roster at night, just in case something learns how to read. Max starts bringing the section in 5 minutes early from any after-dark patrol, just so no one has to stand out on the square when the light is weird. Harper tries to keep things normal. He orders the Italian sign scrubbed clean and replaced with a neat King's Own 2nd BN in black paint. He insists on roll calls twice a day, one at dawn, one at midday, with full equipment, boots polished as much as dust allows. He does not order another sunset roll call. Battalion can go hang, he mutters once, when he thinks no one hears. A week after the barrage, Mustang shows up. That's not his real name. His real name is Captain Marshall, a liaison from brigade who arrives in a dusty staff car with a cloud of orders and a small, intense driver. Someone calls him Mustang once because he strides around like he owns the desert, and the name sticks. He is mid-30s, haircut shorter than most, sunburnt in the way of men who move between tents and open ground a lot. He wears his map case like it's welded to him. He takes one look at the fort and nods as if he's seen something exactly like it 100 times. Qasr al-Arwah, Mustafa says softly when he sees Mustang step through the gate. He has reappeared, as if he was never late. He doesn't come inside this time. He sets his barrels just outside the gate and leaves them there, accepting tins and water containers passed out to him, rather than crossing the threshold. What did he call it? Mustang asks, eyes narrowing. Fort of Spirits, Singh says blandly. He's got a story for everything. Mustang grunts. Spirits or not, Brigade wants this place held. There's a gap in the line between the escarpment and the coast. Rommel finds it. He rolls through. You're the cork in the bottle, lads. He unfolds his map on the mess table. You see thin pencil lines showing the front, little crosses where units sit, arrows pointing both ways. There's a small square scrawled at the edge of a shaded zone. Your fort, a nameless box on a piece of paper. Expect pressure, he says. Patrols, probing attacks. Maybe a full-blooded go, if they think you're soft. Hold them, make noise, call for fire. You're not alone out here, even if it feels like it. He looks around the mess, at the men, at the cracked enamel mugs and scarred tables. You believe in ghosts, Corporal? He asks you suddenly. You blink. Don't have time, sir. Good, he says. Ghosts don't bleed petrol and bullets. Men do. That night, the parade ground is empty. At least, that's what you tell yourself. The pressure comes the next evening. It starts with movement on the horizon. Dust plumes, small at first, then larger. Through the battered field glasses, you see trucks, light vehicles, a few armored cars, all moving with that particular aggressive confidence that says Axis reconnaissance. Contact front, someone mutters. Here they come. There's a scramble to man positions. Men move to the parapets, to firing slits, to weapons pits dug inside the wall. The Bren teams set up where they've rehearsed. A Vickers in a sandbagged nest near the gate. The old Italian anti-tank gun in the southern corner is manned, for the first time since you arrived. Its paint flaking, its breech oiled yesterday on a hunch. The first shells fall short, puffs in the sand, then closer. They're feeling their range. A mortar round drops onto the outer wall, sending a shower of chips. You hear someone yelp. Harper moves along the line, shouting, checking, clapping shoulders. Mustang is up on the western tower, field glasses glued to his eyes, radio handset in his free hand as he barks adjustments to some battery down the line. You are in the radio room with another operator, switching between nets, relaying target coordinates, passing words up and down, morale, positions, ammunition states, all turned into numbers and syllables. Through the slit, you see the first German armored car appear, small and dark against the sand. It stops, a tiny shell, leaving the barrel like a bead of light, arcing toward you. The fort shakes. Italian 75s, Mustang says through the set. They've brought their old toys. Give them something to remember. The anti-tank gun barks back. The armored car jerks, one wheel lifting off the ground, then slumps sideways, smoke pouring from its engine compartment. Men cheer. You hear it through the walls. It's a ragged, desperate sound. The fight becomes a blur. Gunfire rattles. Machine guns chatter. Mortars come in, some too short, some too long, some bang on the courtyard. Men yell orders and cries of pain and incoherent curses. The radio net is a storm of code names, bearings, requests for fire and shells landing where they shouldn't. At some point, you lose track of time. You come back to yourself to find Singh in the doorway of the radio room, grinning with too many teeth, face striped with dust and sweat. Like Diwali Sahib, he says. Lights everywhere. There is blood on his sleeve. You don't think it's his. Mac wants you on the western wall, he says. Bring your ears. They're talking out there. You hand the headset to the other operator and follow him. On the wall, the sun is low and red. The desert is a churned mess of craters and churned sand and the black shapes of burning vehicles. The Germans and Italians have pulled back a little, regrouping behind a low ridge. You can see tiny figures running, gesturing, pointing. In the foreground, In the no man's land, between their line and your fort, there are bodies. Some wear khaki, some wear field gray, some are in the middle of a step that never finished. One lies on his back with his helmet off, hair plastered to his forehead, mouth open as if mid-word. Their shadows are wrong. The bodies lie in whatever positions they fell. The shadows stand up. In the lowering light, you see dark shapes that need attention beside each corpse. Some facing the fort, some facing the desert. When the wind gusts, scraps of cloth flutter, but the shadows don't ripple. Do you see it? Mac asks quietly by your elbow. Yes. Good. Means I'm not mad alone. One German out there is still alive, crawling. He drags himself toward a low depression, leaving a dark smear. His legs don't move. His arms do. He grunts with effort. His shadow walks ahead of him, on 2 steady feet. Bren, hold. Max snaps, as someone shifts to put the wounded man in their sights. Let him crawl. God's handling that one. The wounded man reaches the depression and slumps against the lip. His head rolls back. His mouth opens in a soundless cry. His shadow on the sand takes one more step forward, leaving him behind. It joins a line of other shadows facing your fort. Tom, Max says, look at the parade ground. You look. Down below, inside your own walls, on your own concrete, another line of shadows is forming. Neat, precise ranks. Some are short, some tall. They stand on nothing, black on pale stone. As you watch, one more steps out from the base of the wall, slotting neatly into the back rank. The fort feels too small for your lungs. Get off the wall, you say, all of you. Get off the wall. Mac gives you a look, sees something in your face, and doesn't argue. Off the wall, he roars. Take cover. You hear the corporal. Move. Men drop from the firing step, ducking down behind the parapet, scrambling for the inner stair. You follow, breath hot, heart hammering. As your boots hit the parade ground, the world goes white. You think at first it's another shell, but there's no sound, just light, bright, flat, filling everything. For one endless second, you are a paper figure pinned to a wall, outlined in burning chalk. Then the light is gone, and you are on your knees. The fort is silent. No gunfire, no shouting, no engines, just a heavy, thick quiet. You lift your head. The bodies on the sand outside the wall are gone. No German, no Italian, no khaki, no sprawled limbs. The craters remain. The burning vehicles still burn, but every human shape is gone. On the parade ground, the shadows stand in full formation. They are sharper now, as if the light has etched them. Every crease of a jacket, every fold of a trouser leg is visible in black cutouts. You can see where belts would be, where rifle slings would hang. In the front rank, 3 shadows are out of place. One stands where Kershaw used to stand on parade. One stands with its shoulders a little hunched, like Singh when he is about to make a joke. One's head tilts, ears sticking out just slightly. You don't see Eddie Yates anywhere among the men around you. You run into the barracks, into the motor pool, into the mess. Men are scattered, stunned. Some are picking themselves up off the floor. Some stand staring at the walls. One is praying under his breath with the intensity of a drowning man. Yates, you shout. Eddie, no answer. In the aid post, the wounded man who was bandaged after the first barrage has rolled onto his side. His bandage is clean. His skin is white and waxy. Where's Yates? You demand. The medic looks at you, eyes wide. He was on the wall, he says. Next to you. When you told us to get down, he laughed. Said he wanted to see what was coming. You know that laugh. High, half. A man trying to prove he isn't scared. You go back to the parade ground. The shadows have moved. They have formed a hollow square now, facing inward. The empty center is over the crater. In that black hole within black, something darker stirs, as if night is breathing in there. You take one step onto the concrete. The air is cold, though the sun is still above the horizon. The shadows in front of you all lift their heads in unison. You can't breathe. Tom. Someone's hand clamps onto your arm. Mustang. His face is drawn, jaw clenched. He looks thinner, as if the light burned some of him away. Leave it, he says quietly. We still have orders. What orders? You rasp. To hold, he says, as long as we can, until they tell us to pull out, or until this place falls on our heads. Whatever the hell that was. It didn't change the ink on the map. He looks at the shadows, then at you. Unless you think we should count them as reinforcements, he says, with a humor that doesn't reach his eyes. You don't answer. Night falls heavy. The Germans don't attack again that day. Maybe they have their own ghosts to deal with. Maybe whatever happened out there unsettled them as badly as it has you. The fort is lit by a few bare bulbs and the occasional flare of a match. Men speak quietly, if at all. The usual jokes are thin. In the mess, Max stands at the head of the table with a scrap of paper in his hand. Missing, presumed. He stops. The word sticks. He crumples the paper and looks at you instead. You say it, he says. Eddie Yates, you say, because someone has to. The name hangs in the air like smoke. That night there is no official roll call. Unofficially, every man counts the beds in his section. Counts the helmets stacked on the shelf. Counts the number of mugs on the table. In the radio room, you write a message you never thought you'd have to write. One other rank missing believed killed stop details to follow stop. You don't know what details you can possibly write. In the early hours, near dawn, you wake to the feeling of someone standing by your cot. You open your eyes. Yates stands there. He's in full kit, helmet straight, webbing neat, for once. He's chewing something, his jaw moving slowly. Eddie, you whisper. He looks down at his own hands, turning them over as if puzzled. Shadows are deeper around his fingers, as if ink has pooled there. When he moves his arm, his shadow lags half a beat behind. Should have gone down when you said, he says. His voice sounds distant, like it's coming through a wall. He looks toward the barracks door. They're calling the roll, he says. Gotta go? Who? You ask. Your heart hammers in your throat. He just smiles. A small, rueful twist. Don't be late, Corp, he says. They hate it when you're late. He turns. With each step toward the door, he gets thinner, less substantial. By the time he reaches the threshold, he's just a darker patch in the dimness. Then he's gone. On the parade ground, in the first gray light, shadows stand to attention. You see your own, where it should be. When you join the men for the dawn stand too, you see the extra ones, too, ranked behind, filling in, always neat. You feel like a man standing between two formations. Word from Battalion comes in the next day. Rommel's offensive has punched through closer to the coast. The line is bending. You may be cut off. You may become an isolated position. Code words you learned in training take on flavors in your mouth like rust. Hold until further orders, the last line says. Mustang grimaces. Further orders, he says. They do love that phrase. Days bleed. Attacks come in flurries. Shells slam into the walls, into the yard, into the motor pool. Men die. Not many at once, but enough that the empty bunks add up. Singh takes shrapnel in the shoulder one afternoon while hauling ammunition. He laughs as they bandage him, then winces when the needle finds a nerve. You see, he says, even your English metal cannot keep me down. That night, he dreams in another language, calling someone's name over and over. In the morning, his bed is empty. The bandage is folded neatly on the pillow. His boots stand by the bunk, laces tucked in. His shadow on the floor is missing. On the parade ground, a new black shape stands in the second rank, head tilted just so. The ledger in the radio room gets heavier, lines of ink recording casualties, transfers, changes. You write them in a hand that is starting to tremble. Max stops knocking his pipe against the concrete. He just holds it, turning it over, thumb tracing the worn bite marks on the stem. Harper doesn't joke anymore. He still calls the roll at dawn and midday, voice clipped, eyes fixed on the paper. He never again calls out a dead man's name. Somehow the sheets are always updated. Who's changing them? You ask once, half joking. He looks at you. I put them on the table at night, he says slowly. They're different in the morning. Always correct. He lights a cigarette with hands that aren't steady. I've stopped asking. One afternoon, in a lull, you find Mustafa sitting on a rock outside the eastern wall, staring at the fort. You came back, you say, sitting beside him. He lifts one shoulder. Goats must eat, he says. Men must drink. He looks at the walls, at the cracks, at the places where new British sandbags sit on old Italian concrete. Many names, he says. Too many. Can you get rid of them? You ask. The question feels childish, even as you say it. He shakes his head. Not names, he says. Once you speak, it stays. Once you stand in line, your shadow remembers. You cannot break that. He pats the rock. But you can leave, he says. You can walk away. Fort will keep calling. You do not have to answer. We have orders, you say. He looks at you like he's looking at a child. You have one life, he says. Orders are paper. He taps your forehead with one bony finger. Names up here are stone. He stands, dusts his robes. When you go, he says, do not look back when they call. Shadows cannot follow if you do not turn. He leaves his water barrels nearer the fort than usual this time. He doesn't touch the gate. The last message comes on a hot, breathless afternoon when the air feels like cotton wool. All units in advanced positions to withdraw to phase line Baker. By 2,400 hours, stop garrison Qasr, fort to hold till 0300. To cover movement, stop then, fall back via grid. The rest is coordinates and timings. The important part is simple. You will be last out. Mustang reads it twice. Of course, he says. Of course we're the plug in the bath. He calls the officers and NCOs into the mess. You stand by the radio, listening. Pack light, he says. Essential kit only. Burn what you can't carry. Leave nothing the enemy can use. We'll make one more show for them after dark. Make them think we're staying. Then slip out in the dark, like proper cowards. Harper nods. Mac nods. You nod. Mustang's eyes linger on you a fraction too long. That means no ceremonies, he says. No bloody sentimental last-minute farewells. We've had enough of the dead hanging around in here. He looks toward the parade ground through the open door. For a heartbeat, his face empties of command and becomes just a man's face. Tired, thin, especially not for them, he says. The rest of the day is motion. Papers burned, spare ammunition buried or smashed, equipment dismantled, personal kit crammed into packs. The motor pool stripped of anything that can move. Men move through the corridors with a focus that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with not leaving a piece of themselves behind for whatever owns this place now. At dusk, Harper calls you aside. We have to do one last, he says. You know we do. One last what? You ask, but you already know. Roll call, he says. His jaw is tight. If we leave without one, someone up the chain will make it matter later. Courts, inquiries. We'll be ghosts in a different way. We'll do it quick, in the dark. Whisper if we have to. You think of Mustafa. You think of names in the dark. Do it with a torch inside. You say, in the mess. Any room, not out there. Harper looks at you with that combination of respect and stubbornness you've come to know. It has to be on the book, he says. On the square. That's the way it's always been. You want to shake him. You want to grab him by his neat officer's tunic and shout that. The way it's always been is exactly what's killing you. Instead, you say, then we do it quickly. At 0200, the fort is a dark mass under a sky full of indifferent stars. The trucks are ready, engines cold for now, packs are stacked near the gate. The anti-tank guns sit silent, barrel depressed, as if exhausted. The parade ground waits. You walk out with the others, boots whispering on concrete. No one speaks. No one wants to give words to the feeling in their stomach. Harper takes his place by the flagpole. His clipboard is held like a shield. Mustang stands near the gate, hands in fists, watching the dark beyond the walls. You take your place in the ranks. Fewer men than before. The space between each feels too wide. Company. Harper swallows. Company. Attention. The click of heels on stone is quiet. The shadows are already there. They stand where they always have, in their own neat formation, interleaved with yours. When you look down, you can't tell which black shape is your own. They move a fraction out of sync, a fraction ahead. Harper lifts his head. His face looks paler in the starlight, by sections. He starts with Max. Names. Answers. Some voices are strong, some are barely whispers. Every second name seems echoed a heartbeat later, as if someone behind, someone in another rank, is answering too. When he gets to Singh's name, there is a small silence. No one breathes. From the far end of the line, where the second rank thins, a voice says, clear and amused, "Here, Sahib, it's Singh. It's Singh exactly. A man who isn't there anymore." Harper's hand shakes. The clipboard rattles. Mustang shifts by the gate. "Get on with it, Lieutenant," he says softly. "We haven't got all night." Harper nods once, like a man making a bargain with someone only he can see. He reads on. The names roll over the square like stones dropped into still water. Each makes a ripple that doesn't fade. Private Yates. No one in your physical rank moves. From just over your left shoulder, right where you remember his height, Yates says, "Here, sir," chewing on something invisible. You let your eyes unfocus. The shadows ahead of you merge into a solid wall of black. For a heartbeat, you think you can see faces in there, lighter patches where eyes and mouths should be. Corporal Hales. The breath at your neck is cold and familiar. It smells faintly of Kershaw's enamel mug and Singh's engine oil and Yates' ever-present gum. You remember Mustafa's words. You do not have to answer. Your throat closes. You say nothing. The silence after your name is longer than the others. Corporal Hales, Harper repeats. Quiet. The official tone slips. There is something like pleading in it. You keep your mouth shut. You stare straight ahead. Your heart is pounding so hard you feel it in your teeth. From the black wall in front of you, a voice says, perfectly level, "Here, sir." It's your voice. You hear it, as if from the end of a long corridor. Calm, professional. The way you answer when a senior officer speaks to you in front of men. You don't feel your own mouth move. Harper marks something on the clipboard. Ink on paper. Mustang lets out a breath you didn't know he was holding. Dismissed, Harper says, very quickly. You all know your loading positions. Move. The spell breaks. Men turn. Boots scuff. Someone drops something metal that clatters too loud. There is a surge toward the gate, toward the trucks, toward anywhere but the open concrete square. You stand where you are. Your legs don't want to move. Your body feels like it belongs to someone else. In front of you, the shadows do not disperse. They hold their ranks. One in the front row lifts its head and looks straight at you. It has your shoulders, your stance. The slight forward lean you picked up from years of carrying a heavy pack. It gives you a nod, not a salute. A nod, an acknowledgement between two men who will never speak again. Then, like ink being sucked down a drain, the formation collapses. The shadow men run toward the crater, into it, down into whatever hole in the night lives there. The black spreads, swallowing them, then shrinks back to a normal absence of light. You are alone on the parade ground. Tom. Mustang's voice is at your elbow. You don't remember him crossing the square. We're going. You look at him. Did you hear me answer? You ask. He studies your face. Does it matter? He says. He puts a hand on your shoulder. It's heavier than it should be. You're getting on that lorry, he says. Now, that's an order. You think of telling him that orders are paper. You think of Mustafa's bony finger tapping your forehead. You think of stone. You nod once. You walk toward the gate. As you step through, something pulls at your heels. Not physically. a drag in the air, as if the fort itself is reluctant to let go. You don't look back. You keep your gaze fixed on the dark road ahead, on the vague shapes of trucks and men. Behind you, a voice on the parade ground calls a name. You don't catch which. You don't turn to find out. The convoy moves before first light. Engines rumble, gearboxes grind quietly. Tires crunch over the broken ground outside the walls. The fort shrinks in the mirrors, a darker block against the paling eastern sky. No one talks. Once, as the road dips between low ridges, you lose sight of it entirely. When it comes back into view, further away now, the parade ground looks like a darker patch in front of the blockhouse. In the half-light, for a heartbeat, you think you see lines of tiny dark figures out there, standing at ease, watching you go. Then the road bends, and the fort is gone. Years later, long after the desert has been traded for rain and stone, you stand in a market in some city that doesn't smell of cordite. People move around you in crowds. Pigeons flock in the square. A fountain splashes. The sun is low, throwing long shadows across the cobbles. A whistle blows somewhere. A shopkeeper trying to get a driver's attention. A traffic warden calling someone back. Just that, every shadow in the square turns at once. They pivot, perfectly together, to face one point. You drop the bag in your hand. Fruit spills, rolling over stone. You don't pick it up. You walk away without looking at where those shadows are staring. That night, when you turn off the light, you count. Not sheep, not breaths, not heartbeats. You count how many steps it would take to cross a parade ground. If you want more stories that march beside you after the screen goes dark, stay. There are other names on other rolls, and some of them are still answering. For the dead of the king's own, at the desert fort they called Qasr al-Arwah. And for the shadows that still stand their silent parade, let this be their stone.